All right, welcome back to Please Read Your Book. My name's Carl, and I talk about books. And this video is going to be 5 great manga that I read in 2024. So this is one of a series. I think I'm going to have 4 of these in total. I've got 5 great horror books, 5 great crime books. This is 5 great manga, and then I'm going to do 5 great lit fic books that I read. So let's get into it. Sorry, I need to look at some notes here. First one up, I should say, these are not in any particular order. I haven't ranked these at all. I just chose 5 of the manga that I read this year that I thought were the greatest that I read this year. So the first one on the list is Gantz G by Hiroya Oku. This was probably one of the strangest. There's another one on here is very strange also. But this is one of the strangest manga I've read, one of the strangest stories I've read. So this is a story of a group of teenagers who are classmates, I believe. Yeah, I think they're classmates. They are suddenly selected to become alien hunters, basically. And there's a bunch of aliens from other dimensions who are trying to get into our dimension and trying to kill and enslave humans. And these teenagers are selected. They are given superpower suits, which have powers they don't understand, of course. And they have to use them to kill these aliens. And if they can't do that, the suits will kill them. So there you go. It's a lot cooler than it sounds. If that sounds weird, it gets even weirder. But it's pretty cool. It's drawn really well. And it's just a bizarre, surrealistic, sci-fi, action horror, weird story. It's not very deep. It's not very thought-provoking. But it's just weird. And I mean, there are quite a few moments where you start to question what's real? What is all this all about? So it's very cool. Definitely worth checking out. Number 2 is, I always have a hard time pronouncing this. Homunculus by Hideo Yamamoto. Probably got the name wrong and probably also mispronounced the creator's name wrong. So again, this is another surrealist story. I read this over, I think I cheated a little bit. I started this in 2023, but I finished it in 2024. It's a pretty big story. It's over some pretty massive volumes. It's a story of a marketing executive. I think he's a marketing executive or accounting guy, whatever. He has a good corporate job, but he decides to quit his job and live in his car and basically become broke and homeless. And he needs some money to get his car out of the impound lot. And so he agrees to partake in this very strange experiment from a very eccentric young man. And this experiment is, he wants to drill a very small and very shallow hole in the man's skull and see what happens. And so the guy agrees to it, and he develops this kind of psychic power where he can kind of see a person's psychological trauma, essentially, and kind of in a way that a person might see an aura, but he sees their past or some facet of their personality that they hide from others, and yet it somehow dramatically shapes who they are. So for example, one of the early ones, there's a Yakuza crime boss who is just ruthless and relentless and everyone's scared of him, but deep down inside, he's just a scared little boy. So it's very interesting. It's drawn really well. It's very weird. It's psychedelic and surreal, and it's pretty cool. It's definitely worth checking out. It's one of the better manga I've ever read. Next one, H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness, drawn by Tanabe. So Tanabe is a manga artist. He's done quite a few of these H.P. Lovecraft reinterpretations, I guess. They're not reinterpretations. I mean, they're true to the text. He doesn't update it or anything like that. But I think this is, of the ones he's done, I think this is a superior one. And I think this is actually, I think I've said this in another video somewhere, I think this is superior to the H.P. Lovecraft text. I don't think H.P. Lovecraft is a very good writer. He's a great conceptualist, had some really cool ideas, but not a very good writer. And what I say by that is when you read, specifically like if you read At the Mountains of Madness, there might be 4 or 5 pages of just solid text with very few paragraph breaks of just giving backstory or description of an environment or something like that. Whereas in a manga, you know, that can just be done in a couple panels or in a 2-page spread, and the story keeps advancing, which is much, much better. And I think it adds and helps heighten the tension of the story and the overall feeling of this like overcoming this overwhelming dread, this ominous dread of something horrible happening. It's also probably, I think, one of the cooler H.P. Lovecraft stories. If you don't know it, the story is of an Antarctic expedition in which they sort of discover a mountain range, which apparently has never been discovered before. And it's at a time when these explorers are using new technology like airplanes in the Antarctic, which has not been done before. Before it was always just done by ship and then on foot or by dog sled. And they've got other sort of new equipment to drill and stuff like that. And they uncover in these mountains, they uncover these horrible cosmic beings that they realize are older than Earth, and that causes some of them, or if not all of them, to go crazy. And they go in and explore these sort of caverns in the mountains where these things are. So it's very cool. It's done really well. Tanabe has done the Shadows over Innsmouth, The Hound and Other Stories, and The Call of Cthulhu. And there might be another one that I can't remember. But I think of those that I've read, I have read those that I just mentioned. I think this one is the best. So there you go. Next one is Blame by Nihei Tsutomo. This is also a sci-fi similar to Gantz, but it's not as extreme or weird. Gantz is pretty extreme. This was really interesting. The pacing on this is very slow. So you have to kind of be ready to invest time and give it time to sort of pull you in and sort of let the story unfold. It's a really complicated story, like most manga. It's a really long story, and I think it's continuing to go in different branches now, but I just read the main story of it. The main story is basically there are humans living inside of a small city which is contained within a much larger city, which may in fact be the entire planet. And that megacity is, or was, controlled by an AI, which had, of course, lots of little robots and other smaller AIs that worked together, interacted to, to run and operate the city. And something has gone wrong. Long ago, something went wrong, and humans have the number of humans have shrunk. They've been hunted and harvested by some of these robots and things like that. And there's this one man who is kind of searching for a key, not literally a key, but a key to sort of solve this problem and unlock the mystery of what's happened. I won't give away any more than that, but it's a very cool story. If you like stories that are kind of journeys, it's a really nice vehicle for exploring a new world rather than just having characters sit down and explain it to each other. I think that that's a far superior way to do that. It's really cool. One of the striking features about this manga is that there's not much dialogue or narration to it. There's not much narrative in it. It's almost entirely told visually. So it's really, really cool. I read it on my iPad, and I think it's a great experience to read on the iPad, the way you can, the way the panels play out as you tap through the screen. It's really, really cool. It's definitely worth checking out. It's one of those manga that doesn't get talked about much, especially on YouTube, but it's really, really cool, and it's definitely, I think, one of the best that I've read. All right, last one here, Berserk. Can't talk about manga on YouTube without talking about Berserk. I'm talking about Berserk from Kentaro Miura. This, I'm not finished with it yet. I'm on volume 26, I think. I've taken kind of a couple months break from it, but I really want to pick it up again. I think it's in volume 40 or 41, and it's still going, even though Miura passed away, but others have continued to write the story under notes in the direction of the studio that he ran. This is a very dark fantasy, very grim dark fantasy. Some people say this kind of spawned the current grim dark writers and stories that we have, although grimdark obviously goes back much further, as lots of people on YouTube will tell you. I prefer this to reading fantasy. I prefer this type of comic. So it's grimdark, which means it's dark, dark, dark fantasy. It's kind of horror fantasy. If you are a fan of Hellraiser, you will love this, and you will very much recognize some of the character design that has come from the films, and also some conceptual stuff that has come from Clive Barker books. Miura has, you can read interviews that he's very open about having been influenced and borrowed from movies and books, video games and things like that. And in turn, a lot of other movies, books, and video games have borrowed from him. So it's a very interesting sort of cycle, or a sort of conversation that goes on there. But this is a story of a lone swordsman named Berserk. And it basically tells his whole life, which is incredibly grim and tragic. He is on a mission to slaughter all the demons that he can find, and they're all sort of linked together and working for something called the God Hand. And I don't know much beyond that, despite the fact that I'm on volume 26. So it's a pretty, it's a huge epic story, lots of different characters that come and go. The main character, Berserk, is always there. Obviously, it's his story. But it's definitely worth checking out. It's, also, if you like things like Conan, if you like, I'm trying to think of other, I don't really know a lot about grimdark, so I don't know what else to compare it to. But I've really enjoyed it. I'm not a huge fantasy reader and writer. There is some fantasy I like. I have very specific taste in it, and this is part of what I like. So definitely one of the best manga I've read this year. So there you go. There are 5 great manga that I've read in 2024. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I have to ask that. I very rarely ask that, but it's time, I guess, to start asking for it. Check out some of my other videos too. I read pretty widely, so hopefully you can find something that you like. Please leave a comment too if you know of any of these, and you can suggest similar titles to me. Let me know. Once again, my name is Carl, and this has been Please Read Your Book, and I'll see you again soon.